As my channel name implies, believe it or not, I enjoy video games. So much so that I have a lot. And I have a lot of cats. But no cat games. Aww. However, the system I own the most games for is the Super Nintendo. While I do enjoy modern games and play them often, I find myself always going back to the Super Nintendo. That's because it had a certain appeal to it. It wasn't trying to look super realistic or anything. Instead, it had more of a focus on providing solid gameplay experiences. I mean, hell, even the movie games were fun, and that's saying something. Having enjoyed the Super Nintendo so much, I decided to make a top 10 list. So here's my top 10 favorite SNES games of all time. Please, keep in mind, this is a list of my favorite SNES games, not yours. If you don't see the specific game you want, it's because I thought of you and didn't want to see you happy. That being said, feel free to bitch and complain in the comment section, as I do enjoy comments. And with that, let's begin. At number 10, it's Vegas Stakes for the Super Nintendo. But you already know that because it says Super Nintendo list. Now, I may not be a gambler, but any game that allows you to sign into a hotel as Mr. Buttfuck really does deserve a second look. And upon that second look is a really fun and interesting game. Instead of being your typical run-of-the-mill gambling game, this game has a set goal: win $10 million. And in order to do this, you visit different casinos. But what really lands this the number 10 spot is the interaction between characters. Random people were asked to borrow money from you or ask favors, which sometimes can really pay off. It's kind of cool wondering what someone would need next, but what I enjoyed mostly about this is that as a kid it allowed me to win money, since the only thing I knew how to play were the slot machines. Sadly though, as Super Nintendo games age, they tend to glitch out, and because of this I'm still really only able to play the slot machines, as all the other games kind of make my eyes bleed. The fuck am I looking at? At good old number 9, it's Goof Troop. Back in the day, Capcom was amongst the best, and they knew how to make a game. Delivering solid gameplay, thought-provoking puzzles, and parental abuse, Goof Troop simply was the shit. Plus, it had one of the greatest soundtracks ever on the Super Nintendo. The only shortcoming of the game was its length. Lasting only 5 levels, Goof Troop was grand fun while it lasted, even if it wasn't that long. Number 8 is Soul Blazer, a game that you don't often hear about despite the fact of it being made by Enix. Enix, of course, would later go on to merge with Square to form Square Enix. Soul Blazer plays a bit like a Zelda clone, but the fantastic environments that change as time goes on, a catchy soundtrack, and the amazing atmosphere of this game set it apart from just being another Zelda clone. Plus, it was filled with such memorable characters. I feel so lonely. How about being one of my children? Nah, I'll pass. Well, that's too bad. Sadly, however, I was never able to beat this game as a kid because of the battery pack for the save data dying and eliminating what I think was around 15 hours of my life. And even though I never beat the final boss, everything I did before that was enough fun to get it on this list. It wouldn't be a top 10 games list if there wasn't a Mario game, which is why at number 7 we have Super Mario All-Stars. The game came bundled with not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 remastered Mario games, including Japan's version of Mario 2, which was deemed too hard for American audiences. And holy fuck were they right. But if 4 Mario games weren't enough for your greedy ass, some versions also included Super Mario World with it. This game, in and of itself, would be worth the price of admission. The same can be said for all the other Mario games, though. No matter which one you got, though, both versions included multiple examples of some of history's finest platformers. And both had slot machines for Super Mario 2! Would you please take me to the emergency room? What the fuck? No! Get out! This isn't even your game! We probably wouldn't have had an awesome game like Soul Blazer if not for the Zelda series, and when Zelda made its SNES debut with A Link to the Past, it became a link to the I can't think of anything funny. Comment what you would have put in and maybe you can become the next unsuccessful YouTube star. Only 1,000 subscribers, yay! All joking aside though, there is a reason this game is number 6 on my list. When you think about all this game did, building upon and improving everything that made the first game an unforgettable adventure, and then you add in vibrant graphics, it's easy for one to see why this game is one of the very few Zelda games to spawn a direct sequel. Overall, Zelda: A Link to the Past was an absolute blast, and the first Zelda game I ever played, beat, and then stuck up my ass. At number 5, it's Super Mario RPG, and holy shit, is this game amazing. By the time this game came out, Mario had already been in a puzzle game, a racing game, and even as the referee in a boxing game, so I guess the next logical step was to be in an RPG. Actually, it was the last place people thought they'd see Mario, but the result was a highly original, funny, and fantastic looking RPG. It also introduced us to such lovable characters like Mallow and Gino, who we basically never saw again. This game was just littered with Easter eggs and just had an amazing feeling to it. Everything just felt full of life. This also was the game that spawned the successful Paper Mario series, and everyone loves those games. So buy this. No, I'm serious. Get out the Wii, go to the eShop, realize you have no Nintendo points, shut off the Wii, get in the car, go to the store, buy some points, return from the store, turn on the Wii, and purchase the goddamn game. Sure, games like Street Fighter 2 went on to help redefine fighting games and spawn countless sequels, but our number 4 game, Killer Instinct, went on to make a sequel a year later, and then another sequel over 15 years later, but with nearly half the content. Yay, progress! But as for its SNES debut, Killer Instinct was a hell of a game. Although a port of the arcade game, the SNES version was still able to maintain the fast action, memorable characters, and most importantly, the... While there's a lot less going on in terms of gameplay than other games on this list, Killer Instinct is one of those games that I can keep coming back to year after year. As for fighting games on the Super Nintendo, this is my favorite. Final Fantasy III on the Super Nintendo, or 6 in Japan, and 6 as well if you're playing the Game Boy Advance version here in America, may be considered to be the best Final Fantasy of all time. The fact that 7 is actually the best aside, not a lot of praise is given for 2, or in Japan's case 4, and 4 as well if you're playing the Game Boy Advance version or the DS version. Oh god, too many numbers. To describe Final Fantasy II in a way that won't make your ears bleed, Final Fantasy II, in my opinion, was the first real Final Fantasy game to have an actual good story. A story that you actually wanted to see panned out. Betrayal, love, and loss were all wrapped up into a fun game that I enjoyed even watching my brother play. Granted, it took me and my brother years to beat it because, like Soul Blazer, the internal memory died on this too. So it seems like back in the day, neither Square nor Enix could make a game with proper save data. But who knew that one day those two companies would join up and make such classics like... Oh. At number 2, it's Super Mario World, and I know that it already was shown in All-Stars, but some people didn't have the super awesome edition of All-Stars and instead just had the standalone version. That and the fact that it wasn't originally made for All-Stars are reason enough to give it its own spot on this list. Coming packed in with the Super Nintendo, Super Mario World was, for many, what sold the console, and for pretty much everyone, what kept them glued to their TV for days. With absolute perfect controls, dozens and dozens of addicting levels that were expertly designed, Super Mario World offered one of the Super Nintendo's finest games, and the fact that it was available day one on the console's release made it all the more sweeter. And at number 1, we have Shaq Fu. I'm kidding, that game blows. Really, at number 1, we have Mega Man X. When I said Capcom knew how to make a game, I meant it. Having played and beaten all the Super Nintendo Mega Man X games, I can say that without a doubt, none of those or any other game on the system comes as close to perfection as Mega Man X does. Mega Man X advanced the series way beyond what anyone could have ever imagined and placed players in a handful of expertly designed and memorable levels, each concluding with a just as memorable boss fight. Throw in a ton of power-ups and armor built around the design of the levels and you have reached perfection. There are many great Super Nintendo games out there, but to me, Mega Man X stands as the best, and to me, best sums up what made the 16-bit era so good, which is why it's my number 1. Hey, I'm Chris Jewett, and if you enjoyed this top 10 list, then you can check out my other top 10. Oh, wait, I don't have any others. Well, why not like and subscribe then? If you enjoyed this list, tell me a top 10 you'd like to see in the comments below, and if enough people like this, then I'll make some more. You can also support me by donating to ClassicGamerReviews on Patreon by clicking here. And you can get more insight on videos by liking us on Facebook in the description below. Thanks for watching.